Welcome back.
Hello, hello. Good to see everyone. Is everyone back?
I think we have everyone.
Okay. Well,
I am. That's all that counts.
I'm back.
I'm back. Vicki, if you would do the honors and go back to the PowerPoint so we can share. Thank you. All right. So before we go into what you discussed in your breakout rooms, we're going to take a look at the dashboard. And one of the questions that I want you to think about are, what are some of the areas of success that you can find just by looking at the dashboard? So those of you who don't know what the dashboard looks like, I know Vicki talked about it a little bit earlier, but Vicki, can you show us what the dashboard looks like? This is part of it, at least. All right. So on this, you see this is part of the dashboard, and it talks about, shows you the club name, the club number, the division, and the area, and it gives some more details. So looking at this, can anyone tell me, just shout it out, what's one of the first things you notice? Let's look at membership.
Yeah.
Membership. Okay, go ahead.
Good.
Okay, so what are the numbers? What do they mean, Norma? What does?
So the base is the least amount of members that they can have. Up to date, they now have 14. And in order for them to get the DCP goals, you only require 15. So they're just one short of getting their DCP points.
Okay, very, very good. Close. But let me explain a little bit more about that number 10. Yeah. That is the base number that the club started with
right.
on July 1st. So on July 1st, they started with 10 members. You know, when a club charters, they have to have a minimum of 20. But for this particular club, we're looking at Trailblazers just because it's my home club. And I just felt like I wanted to see how they were doing. So their base started out as 10 clubs on July 1st. So they needed to get a net gain of 5 clubs. Okay. Any club below 20 has to have 20, if you can see right under the required. So they need a total of 15 clubs by the end of June. So 20 members to date has to be their final number, or a net growth of 5 new members. So they've already gained 4. And as you stated earlier, they only need 1 more. Now they have goals that are met. Someone else want to talk to me about the goals? What does that mean?
Hey, Paula, this is Felicia. I can help.
Felicia.
For the goals, at the top, it gives the number of goals that they've met from their DCP, how many pathways levels have been completed, if they went to officer training, if they pay dues on time. Those are some of the items in the goals list. This club has actually met 8 of those. The grayed out sections right below gives you how many items you need to complete to reach each level. Distinguished is 5 goals. Select distinguished means you've completed 7 goals, which they have reached, which is awesome. And they have a potential to reach the president's distinguished by reaching 9 of those goals, which means they need 1 more. And they could figure out which one that was down below. The further down on this page, it would tell them which ones they've met and could meet.
Awesome. Yes, and I'll show you that in a second. Also, if you notice the tabs across the top, district performance, division and area performance, club performance, and club status. When you go to the dashboard, first thing is going to take you to district performance. So to get to this particular screen, I'm on club status. So that's where you're going to see the individual clubs that you want to look at and find out more detail about that club. Okay, so we're going to look at the next dashboard item, and this is going to tell you the actual status. This is under the club performance tab. Okay, so this one, by looking at this, you can see a lot of different information that we couldn't see on the other one. Can someone else tell me, what do you see? What is it? Let's look at the one with the P next to it, Jacksonville Toastmasters. Someone tell me what this line is telling us about Jacksonville Toastmasters.
I believe that I believe the
President.
P stands for presidential distinguished.
Okay, very good.
Uh,
So
the
why,
reason why I say that is because I see that to date they've met 20. Their base is 20. They have 20 members. They met 10 out of 10 on their goals based on what they met, and then they have the P next to their name. So that's making me realize that that particular club is presidential distinguished.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. That's great. They've met 10 out of 10 goals. And if you look across the section, they've met all those education goals are in there. They've got membership renewals where it says MEM, that's your membership renewals. The first 6 months and then the second. So you're looking at 2 terms. And on the 9A and 9B, that is they've turned in their renewals on time. And then the
Oh.
last,
Training.
That's actually 7
Training.
of 7. Both
oh, I'm
times.
sorry. Thank you. Training. You're absolutely right. Thank you. Sorry about that. Training 7 of 7. I should have looked at the numbers, but you can see that they've all got 7 of 7, both terms except Lillian Bradley got 6 on the second one. And then on 10A and 10B, that is telling you that the renewals were submitted both terms in 10A and that the officer list was submitted in 10B. All right, so Jacksonville Toastmasters, President Distinguished, 10 out of 10. That's awesome. You can see they started with a base of 21 members. As long as they stay 20 or better, they don't have to really worry about bringing in any new members. Okay, so let's have somebody real quick tell me about the first one on the top, Lillian R. Bradley. And I want you all to know I'm not picking on any clubs. This just happened to be the top where I could fill in all the information and also show the division and area. So this tells you more details. So let's go with somebody else who hasn't spoken yet. Let's talk about that top one.
So I would be concerned, really depending on where I'm at in the year. Looking at Lillian Bradley, their base was 21, they got 14. So that we need to work on the membership. They've only got 3 goals set. So meaning looking at here at the training, okay, so they've gone through 2 sets of training. So it's later into the year. So I would be very, very concerned. But if it's close to the beginning of the year, maybe I wouldn't be as concerned. As an area director, I would probably be putting in my resignation. I'm just kidding.
Not allowed.
Oh, Debbie's like, oh my God, no. So I would be really sitting down to try to find out what's going on with this club. I think as far in the year as this probably is, I would have already done a lot of interaction with that club to help them sort that out. And maybe it's just a club that's not going to survive.
Well, Jamie, I'm sorry. Yeah, Jamie, let me ask you this. Looking at the row on the top, education, they've only submitted 1 education award. They've got 14 members. They've trained 7 out of 7 and 6 out of 7. They've submitted their club officers. So that kind of tells me that, you know, with 14 members, this could be an active club. So
It could be.
What do you think about the membership, the educational goal, education awards not being put in there? What would you think about that? And what would you say to the club?
People are not going into pathways to finish up their education. That actually happened in the club that I'm in when I took over VP of Education this past year. People were doing everything in Easy Speak, but they weren't going back in to close out their training in pathways. So I'd help change their process to be able to make sure that they did that.
Yes, absolutely. Bob, you have got your hand
This
raised.
may also be something like we were talking about in our group. Well, we don't do pathways. They may just not be following the program.
Yeah.
They're doing everything else, but they're doing their own thing versus actually working the program. Some clubs just meet, especially if it's a corporate club, they meet because they have to.
Yeah.
You have to find out if they're actually even giving project speeches.
Very true. Very true. And that's unfortunate. But when we get more deeper into pathways, we'll get more involved in more discussion as far as what can we do to convince some of these clubs that are, no, I don't want pathways, I don't believe in it, I don't like it. What can we do to convince them to, at least they're giving speeches, so there's maybe a way around this so that we can get them to be more involved with pathways. Okay.
And John had his hand up first and then Christina,
Okay, great. Thank
if you have time.
Yes, John, go right ahead.
Okay, we're seeing that after the second TLI, they only had one person who did not attend training. So this is the latter part of the quarter right now, or this educational year.
Yes.
I would see if they're hoarding the results. Maybe the VPE has not had time to finish the submissions. So find out if he needs assistance, if the secretary can step in as a backup VPE, see what they can do to push, because they missed one whole point just by not having the other person there for training. There's a very simple. If they can get 2 or 3 educational goals, now they're becoming a distinguished level, and it could help motivate the club to push for the other members they need to join, because they're starting to move, and it could motivate. So it may be where the VP is overwhelmed at the moment and they have not had time to submit them. That's why it's good to have those daily sheets sometimes, because the performance may take a couple days to update, but you see them on your dailies or anything like that to help boost it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Christina.
I was just going to mention, it could be like you had said before, where maybe the VPE, maybe it's a new VPE or something, and they took over in the last 6 months, and they're not following through with Club Central once they do the signing off in base camp.
Mm-hmm. So as an area director, what would you do? You would reach out to who in the club and say what?
Paula, let me clarify something right quick before we go any further. So John said if they had gotten the one more train, they would have gotten the point. And that's actually the incentive. They get 7 of 7, then they get an incentive, but they get the point with 4 officers trained.
Right, they get the point. Yes, thank you for clarifying that. Okay, Christina, was that?
No, I was saying 4. As long as you have 4, you're good. You have the
Right,
point.
right. Now, one thing that I do want to point out before we go on to the next slide is if you look in the member column, that number 3 is kind of grayed out. That's because they did not get that point yet. They currently have 3 members. They need 1 more, and that's going to give them another point. So all this club really needs, when you think about it, is they need 5 more members. No, wait, 6 more members. They need 6 more members. They need, which will actually give them another point. It'll actually give them 2 more points, and any additional education awards. So they can easily, 6 members, maybe a little difficult at this point in time, but it would have brought them to distinguish. So those are things you have to look at, not just the education points, but the members, because it's a combination of both when you're working towards that DCP. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next slide. So goals met, we talked about that. So let's go on to the next one. And this one is what was mentioned a little bit earlier by Felicia. When you go further down on that club status information, I highlighted this area, and if you would click it just one time for me, Vicki, you'll see my little, there you go, pointing right to that, and it's so important. And this is what several of you mentioned. It's always important. It must be submitted in both base camp and Club Central. So if the VPE is not doing that, the other officers, the club member themselves who's missing out on this, or the area director needs to be looking at this. Keep an eye on that dashboard so you can contact the club before it's too late. And again, as Felicia had said earlier, you can look down here and you can see what levels are completed, what is needed. So it spells it out for you. You don't have to think and figure it out. It says it right there. Okay, we're going to move on because we don't want to lose a lot of our time. So now thinking about what we talked about, and earlier we talked about what successes can you easily identify during a club visit. Let's get like just 4 people tell me real quick, what successes, who hasn't spoken yet? All right. I'm gonna ask for people. How is that? Leona, what's one of the successes that you can identify just by visiting that club?
If they are really close to getting distinguished or president's distinguished, that's a success that you can identify during a visit. Individual successes, if people have reached a level, finished a level. If it's a great meeting, just saying, boy, I enjoyed this meeting and really did enjoy it. That's a success.
Very good. Thank you. Awesome. Daron, how about you? Name me a couple of successes.
So far, one person has completed their path or one of those goals. Maybe that person can assist others in completing that and letting them know how to update their position in pathways. They do have a good number of actually, in these times, they have a good number of members. So that's a good success. They seem to have maintained a lot of their members during the year. And that you can also promote or bring up to them as a success.
Absolutely.
So they must be having some good meetings. They're just maybe not following the program as closely as they should.
Absolutely. Definitely. All right, Linda, I haven't heard from you. Linda, how about you give me a few successes, please?
Well, during one of our group sessions together, we mentioned just the energy in the room. If everyone is excited to be there, that is a definite success. That means that members are actually interested in staying in the club, and that if you were to possibly bring a guest, that would increase the chances of them staying. So definitely the level of energy, the level of excitement to be there would be a definite success.
Excellent, thank you. Sam, how about you? Give me a couple of successes.
I was going to say the same thing. All of us humans have an intuition. We walk into a room where people are more friendly, excited, energetic. We want to be part of that group. And you get that feeling wherever we go. Toastmaster Club is no exception. So if how you were greeted, how the meeting progressed, how members interacted with each other, and after the meeting, how many members approached you, how was your interaction with them, the officers, how helpful were they? All these play into a successful club.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, we'll go with Junelle. How about you? What do you, other than what's been said, name a couple of successes when you walk into a meeting that you can immediately see during the course of the meeting?
A good success I see is when you walk in, they actually have an agenda where it lines up everything that's going on, the roles and who's speaking. I would say starting on time is a good success because, you know, knowing who's going to speak and ending the meeting on time. I would also say, you know, if they have the guest sitting next to maybe another member that maybe answer any questions, that's also a great success so they can come back and visit. And I would think having a membership packet. So if guests come, they can have something they can take with them, brochures or something to know what the club is and who the officers in the club, you know, information like that in some kind of packet. Perfect. I think that would be a great success.
Awesome. You hit it right on the head. And if no one was going to say the agenda, I was going to say that. So thank you for saying that. That was great. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, so now this is going to be in reference to what you talked about in your breakout sessions. You talked about issues and what resources. So let's talk about that. What are some of the common issues, and give me some of the resources that you came up with. I'm going to choose one person from each of the divisions because I'm not sure how much time we have, so we need to move on a little bit quickly. So let's go with Division B. Who wants to speak for Division B?
I can, unless somebody else wants to.
Rachel, go right ahead.
Ruby did a great job going over all the resources with us, and one of the challenges we identified was if you have confused officers and they're not quite sure what they're doing, you can help them out, or you can direct them to the officer leadership handbook, and also to attend their TLI trainings. That was one challenge.
Very important, very good resources too. Okay, Division C.
I'll go ahead and speak for Division C. We actually came up with a number of challenges. One of them, of course, being membership strength. And what we did is we talked about different ways that as area directors, you can help them, perhaps by letting them know about the club growth coach program, getting them with a club coach. We also talked about marketing the club and the materials that are available on the TI website, brochures. Another thing that we mentioned was pathways involvement is an issue, and making sure, like we just talked about, showing that people are submitting their levels as completed in pathways, and utilizing the resources, making the clubs aware of resources that are available for training and pathways, even if you have to bring a laptop and show, sit down with them and show them what to do. And Bob said, some clubs are going to just refuse to do it, but you can only encourage as much as you can.
Yes, perfect. I think I popped in on your discussion just when you were talking about that too, and I was nodding my head. I don't know if you saw that, but I was definitely very good discussion in every room that I popped in on. Okay, so what about D? Do we have a spokesperson for D?
So let me just review my notes here. So the one thing that the other two groups didn't talk about that we did, because we talked about a lot of the other things that they talked about with membership and things like that. But one thing that we talked about, and one of my other colleagues here talked about structuring the meeting. He mentioned that he went into a meeting one time and there was no agenda, there was no structure of the meeting. They went on a whim. And so one resource that we could help them with in terms of helping them to have more of a structured meeting is to help them formulate an agenda, either by using Easy Speak or Free Toast or the like, and help them to have more of a structured meeting.
Perfect. Thank you, Sunil. All right, so that was D. Where's somebody from E, please?
I think one of the challenges that I would think actually is people not forgetting their reason why they joined Toastmasters. A lot of times, especially with some of the older members, they stop coming to the meeting because they get to the point, what else can Toastmaster offer me? And I was talking with a couple of other Toastmasters that had received their DTM. It's like, you have your DTM now, but now you stop coming to the meeting. When you were, before you put on your DTM, you were there every week. And what changed? At this point, at this point, you are a resource. People are looking up to you. Don't put on your DTM and then stop coming to the meetings. Stop showing up. That's when you should be showing up, in order to share your experiences with the newer and the younger members.
That is wonderful. And you hit it right on the nose when you say the newer and the younger members, because we don't want to just bring in younger members. We want to bring all ages from all aspects of life, but we do want to bring in the younger ones more because they're the ones that are going to carry on. They're the ones that are going to become our future leaders. Just like our children are going to be our future leaders, our younger, newer Toastmasters are going to be our future Toastmaster leaders. So we want to encourage all ages, but we want the more seasoned, and I'm not going to use the word older, the more seasoned Toastmasters that have already earned their DTMs. And many of you know that there's several people who are in their third, fourth, fifth DTM. Just because you get that amazing accomplishment doesn't mean you're done, because the learning never ends. The growing never ends. The teaching and mentoring of others never ends. And that's one of the reasons I'm in Toastmasters for as long as I am, because I love being with people and sharing sharing new things, learning new things, growing. It's just, you're all here for that same reason, I'm sure, or that's part of one of your many reasons. Thank you for that, Donald. That was great. All right, let's go quickly to F.
We talked about one of the biggest challenges we saw was individuals coming in, they see their first 1 or 2 meetings, they're so intimidated because you do have a lot of professional speakers that have done really great. And we saw that this week. So suggested a little evidence of it was our Toastmaster, who's a DTM, came right out and said, look, we all make mistakes. We'll still make mistakes. How we grow and how we improve ourselves make us better. We all started at the same place. And he used the reference of falling off a bicycle 2 weeks ago that he's been riding for 40 some years, but he fell off the bicycle again. And he said, that's what we do. But we're in a non-judgmental area. If you provide that confidence to your people when they're joining or going through the first couple of meetings, they're going to understand you're not going to walk in and be a perfect speaker.
Exactly. Yes.
It takes time to develop it and you become a proficient one.
Yes. All right. I want to move a little bit quicker because I'm getting close to the end of time. So how about G?
I think Leona and I may be the only ones from G
Okay.
in here. I'm not sure.
Okay, Norma, Leona spoke a little bit earlier. So how about you? It's your turn.
One thing that we talked about was officers' engagement. Sometimes we have trouble getting our officers or getting new people to become officers. So we just continue to recycle the officers that are there, and eventually they get burned out, or even somebody volunteers just because no one else would volunteer. And then you're stuck with something you don't really want to do. So I think officer engagement is a very, very important thing. So when you are getting ready as an area director, you probably should talk to your offices about identifying people. This would be the resource, identifying people that they think they would be a good fit for a particular officer position, and then have an actual election instead of just asking for volunteers. Whether you, I mean, obviously if you have an election, sometimes you will nominate yourself, but it's better if you try to work with the club to get people to nominate each other. It seems to work better.
Absolutely. Okay, real quick, Michelle, Bert, how about you for H?
I'm going to speak for H.
Oh, okay, H, you know?
we had talked about, since we're going back to in person, we talked about Zoom and hybrid meetings, and we said that the resources would be International Toastmasters, and Ron Pinpart would be a good resource because he does the hybrid training, Zoom trainings. And we talked about locations for meetings. Now that we're coming back, some restaurants have closed, some places have closed. So we're saying that you can go to meetups, nonprofit organization, club centers, any members that may know of other clubs that meet other places. And we also talked about another challenge will be open houses, that they may not know how to do them or schedule them. So there's TLI has how to design flyers, establish a budget. And we also talked about when they come in, sometimes they don't know what the acronyms are, like what is DCP, what is a division director, like helping them with that as well.
Yeah, explaining the acronyms. I like that. And last but not least, I. Who's going to talk to us from I real quick?
Well, I benefited from expertise beyond my recognition and problems I didn't know about. And I think the thing that I came away with most vividly from that is that there are strict guidelines on what you do not get involved with, but continuing to, when you see something, to bounce people back to the TI resources.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to move on. Thank you. I'm being told we are getting close to out of time. So on my last slide, I'm just going to really quick to be ready to recognize successes. So I just want to just let you know that as area directors, you are the direct contact between the district and the clubs. They go to you first with their questions and concerns. They rely on you for assistance and resources. So by reviewing the outcomes of your club visits, you can better recognize their successes and support them to succeed. Thank you all so much. And I'm going to turn it back over to, well, the next slide, we're going to have an open chat. I'm going to open it up for just a few questions. What do we have, like 5 minutes, Debbie Jo? I'm not sure. For some questions.
Let's make it 4.
4 minutes, okay, because I took a little bit longer than I should have. Those of you who know me, you know that's probably the norm.
So can we make it 3?
All right, any questions?
I have a question, Paula.
Yes.
You all mentioned that the area director visitors report is going to change or updated or whatnot. I printed out the form, I guess that's on there now. So is that now not going to be used?
I wish we
The
could
current
tell you
form?
I wish we could tell you the answer to that question, but we haven't seen it.
Oh,
Have you
okay.
seen it, Paula?
I have not, but from what I've heard, it is going to be changed and updated. I don't know what the changes will be. Whatever is on there now is not the one to use. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. As of July 1st, we should see the new one.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Any other
don't know.
questions?
Hi,
Questions?
this is Marcia. I know that there's been some realignments. When will we get our actual list of clubs?
We can put that in chat, or I can email that to you.
Oh, okay. You know what? Email it, please, because I'm using a tablet and I'm not
Yeah.
getting any of the downloads. Thank you.
Yes, so we just got the form today to send to TI, so I will send the realignment to everyone. We're also going, so any other questions for this session?
Thank you.